And for more on the ongoing 76th UNGA, let's bring in a journalist with Africa-related, Oyiza Adaba. She joins us from New York, United States. Thank you so much, Oyiza, for joining us this hour.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm sure you've been following this 76th session. It's been a lot of speeches here and there. But mainly focused on issues around poverty, COVID-19, democracy, and climate change. When you listen to, before we narrow this down to the issues, what do you make of the speeches given so far?
So far, there has been a lot of talks, and again, that is what the UN General Assembly is all about. A lot of talking. High-level meetings between governments on some of these problems and challenges that have faced the world, especially in the last year, given the challenges of COVID-19 and its impact across the world. The theme for the year is building resilience through hope, with the backdrop, of course, of COVID-19, the climate crisis, the cybersecurity challenges across the world. Of course, human rights, and also so many issues that the world is currently plagued with: security, safety, and peace, conflict, in different parts of the world. So, world leaders have come together, each highlighting their own problems, their own challenges, with these major areas in the backdrop. And most of what we have heard in the last week, it's a week-long meeting of these world leaders. Most of what we have heard is really along these lines, and the greatest concern really is about COVID-19 and its impact around the world, especially in Africa. The vaccine inequity is one of the subjects that is top on the agenda, and we've heard it over and over again, not just from African leaders, but from leaders across the world, of how 9 out of less than 2% of those vaccinated in the world are in Africa. So those figures are very low. It's quite concerning. Why there should be vaccine inequity at all. And these are some of the challenges, and these are some of the problems that are being talked about. Of course, the climate crisis as well.
And that's where just to quickly jump in, because that's where the climate crisis is where I really want to touch on now before we move to the COVID-19. When you listen to the leaders talk about the climate crisis, everyone seems to know what's wrong. Everyone seems to know what next to do. Yet most leaders are falling short or falling behind when it comes to the commitment made in the Paris Agreement. So what does it say to you if everyone knows what to do and what's wrong, and yet falling short in terms of commitment?
I think if we were to give, pass marks for speeches, most of the leaders would get will get an A in their deliveries of their addresses. But the point is the implementation, what is actually being done. And the same, you find that the same leaders that are actually talking across the table totally disagree on the approach to the climate changes and the challenges that are happening. President Muhammadu Buhari spoke this morning, of Nigeria spoke this morning, and he also touched on that. He said the impact of the climate change causes youth migration, loss of livelihood, drought, desertification, food insecurity, and it is something that needs to be talked about. There are a lot of commitments. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, was very critical in his opening address of world leaders that have refused or have not met up to their commitments. I think he mentioned that only 15% of of the commitments towards climate change so far have been met. And he called and cautioned on world leaders to use this opportunity, not just see it as a photo op and to a networking platform, but to use it as an opportunity to get real results in the coming years, especially regarding the issue of climate change.
And another leader who seemed, just to get to the COVID-19 you mentioned earlier, another leader who seemed to be very critical of what leaders in her address is the president of Tanzania, who has been, Samia Hassan, who seemed to be really upset about how some countries are now giving booster shots, whereas in Africa, there's a situation where less than 4% of its population has been vaccinated, and she's calling on world leaders to suspend booster shots, just as WHO is doing. But is there a right or wrong here? Because the booster shots are being given to the vulnerable population of these countries. What do you make of this?
Even here in the United States, there's still a debate going on about booster shots, whether it's necessary, whether it's, it's an ongoing conversation. And because COVID-19 is so novel still, and it's still being studied, there's a lot of, hence the misinformation and all of that came with it. But going back to President Samia Hassan of Tanzania, it's interesting that you mention her, because she said the burden of expectation to deliver, even on any other issue, on every other issue, is on her, because of issues like gender equality, and with the backdrop of the pandemic going on. She inherited quite a lot from her late predecessor when she took over government, which included also re-education and also re-enlightening of the populace about COVID-19 that wasn't even taking it seriously before. So the challenges she pointed out there, and it's what she's facing, and to think that booster shots are being touted in other parts of the world, when some countries in Africa have not even received the first dose of the vaccine, is something that is incomprehensible to a lot of the African leaders that we see here. And they talk again, about the social disparities of the global structure and how the world is positioned, using opportunities like this to call on Africa to have a seat at the UN Security Council, for example, so that the continent, not even the countries, but the continent can be well represented.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for breaking this down for us, Oyiza Adaba, a journalist with Africa Related.
Thank you very much.